Welcome, everyone, to today's session of our Fall 2023 series of Tuesday Times Roundtable, Child Rights and Why They Matter, Becoming a Local Champion for Children. My name is Michelle Zaldivar, your Senior Program Coordinator here at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. TTR is our flagship discussion series that brings together multiple perspectives on current global issues and trends. You can learn more about TTR, watch past recordings, or come back and reference this one at go.fiu.edu/TTR. As we engage in today's session, we ask that everyone please use a mic. We've got some roaming mics that we'll have on the side, so when we have some room-wide engagement, those will be circulating around, and we'll have our two graduate assistants who you met up in the front helping you with that. But anything that isn't captured on a mic isn't captured in our recording. So please make sure that if we are doing some big room engagement, that we're using the mics for all of that. If you haven't already, please take a moment to sign in. I know what's happening. If you haven't already, please take a moment to sign in. Medallion students, make sure to take a screenshot of your sign-in to include in the verification line of your points log. If you'd like to learn more about the opportunities for undergraduate students at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives, including our Medallion program, Peace Corps Prep, and our fellowship programs, check out our website, goglobal.fiu.edu/students, or follow us on Instagram at goglobalfiu, or come by our advisor drop-in hours. TTR is always grounded in a global issue and trends and is always linked to some news article where you can learn more. You can read the article for this week's session at go.fiu.edu/TTR0926. That's go.fiu.edu/TTR0926. If you haven't already, you can access your free digital subscription to the New York Times, because anyone with an @fiu.edu email address has access to a free digital subscription of the New York Times. So if you haven't already, you can do that at accessnyt.com. Leading our session today is Senior Associate of Community Engagement for the U.S. Programs Team at UNICEF USA, Ebony Fountain. Ebony has been with the organization for almost 2 years and supports the Southeast region. In her role, she empowers youth and UNICEF USA clubs through training and relationship building to take action in their local community. She encourages youth to use their voice to influence change and bring about a better world for every child. Ebony is passionate about community development, creating enrichment programs for children and families, addressing food insecurity, mental health, and access to equitable education. In her free time, Ebony likes to cook, garden, participate in community service projects, play with her 3-year-old Chorky, and spend time with family and friends. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our leader today, Ebony Fountain. I'm just gonna, so I don't do this later to you.
Okay.
Take this.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you all today to ground us in child rights and talk about why child rights should matter to you. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about human rights and ways that you can take practical steps to create a more equitable world for every child in your local community. Before we get started with the main topic, let me tell you a little bit about UNICEF and UNICEF USA and how they interact. UNICEF was first founded in 1946 by the United Nations to meet the emergency needs of children post-World War II in Europe and in China. UNICEF became a permanent part of the United Nations system in 1953, and its name was shortened to the United Nations Children's Fund. UNICEF's mission reads that UNICEF is mandated by the United Nations General Assembly to advocate for the protection of children's rights, to meet their basic needs, and to expand their opportunities to reach their full potential. So we talked a little bit about UNICEF, so who are we, UNICEF USA? We are a supporter of UNICEF. Our mission is to relentlessly pursue a more equitable world for every child. Since its inception, UNICEF USA has provided UNICEF and other non-government organizations with $7.7 billion in cash and in-kind donations. UNICEF USA successfully advocated for Congress to direct the U.S. government to allocate $132.5 million to UNICEF in fiscal year 2017 and 2018. So what do you know about child rights? Before we get to the meat of the presentation, I want to test your knowledge. If you have a phone, go ahead and pull it out if you haven't already, and scan the QR code. This code will take you to a pretest. It's very short, so I'll give you all about 3 minutes to complete it. So thank you all so much. If you are still working on that last question, please feel free to continue to add to that word cloud. All right, so let me click back over here so we can go on to our next slide. Okay, so can anyone tell me, just based off some of the things that you may have seen on the pretest, how would you describe child rights to a coworker, to one of your peers? In your eyes, what do you think child rights mean to you? And feel free to raise your hand, and we have the GAs coming around with the microphone. Wonderful. Hi.
My name is Isabella. I would describe child rights similar to human rights. The ability to the right to be protected, to people not infringe on your health, your security, etc.
Nice, nice. Any other thoughts? Thank you so much for sharing. So as USA volunteers and as global citizens, your voice and your actions play an important role in promoting and protecting the rights of every child everywhere. That includes your ongoing work in support of UNICEF's life-saving work around the world, as well as increasing opportunities to work with UNICEF USA to improve the lives of children right here in the United States. So let's take a look at what we'll be learning throughout this workshop today. Our goal by the end of this series is that you will be able to consider how you can be a champion for children's rights in your own network and spaces. We want you to be able to understand and identify key characteristics on the Convention of the Rights of a Child and be able to apply child right concepts based on the CRC to real-world communities. Another way of thinking about this are the 3 A's: awareness, application, and action. Our goal is by the end of this, you all can master these objectives in a short amount of time that we have together. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we can understand child rights and how they apply to real-world situations, we must first understand human rights. The reason is that children have both human rights and child rights. They work together rather than being one or the other. Human rights are defined as global minimum standards that recognize and protect the dignity of all human beings. These are minimum standards, so they are just the starting point, and we want to go beyond that, as you can see on the screen. Rights govern how individuals live in society and work with each other, as well as their relationship with governments and the obligations that governments have towards them. They include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. To help us look at things through a human rights lens, and specifically the child rights approach, it helps to understand these human rights principles. So, rights are 4 things. They're inherent, universal, inalienable, indivisible, and interdependent. First, human rights are first inherent to all human beings without discrimination just by virtue of being born. They're also universal, so they are for everyone around the world regardless of who you are. They are also inalienable, meaning they can't be taken away from you no matter what you've done, where you're from, or what borders you live within. They are indivisible, so they are equally important. And they are also interdependent, meaning often the fulfillment of one relies on the fulfillment of another. Finally, accountability and rule of law are cornerstones of human rights. They are guaranteed by international treaties and other types of laws. So we'll continue to talk about these human rights principles as we go out throughout the presentation. So keep an ear out for all rights as they are equally applied to children's rights. So why would children have their own special set of rights? Could anyone answer that for me? Why do you feel children have their own set of special rights? Yes, in the back.
Hi everyone, my name is Camilla. I feel like because they don't know their rights, if there's not a set standard, I feel like they wouldn't know as adults. So
That's a good point. Any other thoughts? We have one over here, and we have one right here.
I think that
children are very innocent and can be very gullible. And so, I mean, that's why they should have, like, their own set of rights, because they need the protection the most.
Nice. And then we have one over here and then one over here as well.
I would kind of argue that children can be taken advantage of differently compared to humans. Not that humans cannot be, adults cannot be taken advantage of, but I feel like children, in the same way that she said, they're innocent and they can kind of be more easily manipulated as compared to adults. And so that just leads to another set of problems which are distinct from that of adults.
Yeah, yeah. We had two hands, yes.
I would agree with everything that everybody has said so far, but I think one of the main parts is that children are dependable, whereas humans and adults are usually independent and they can take care of themselves on their own. And children need that special addition, need that special care of somebody else. So that's why they have their own separate set of rights for them.
Yeah, one more. Did you want to say that?
I was about to say the same thing that she said, but she took it right out of my mouth. Yeah, likewise to what she said, I was just going to say that children are under the care of the adults, and having that separate right for a child is protecting them to ensure that they're giving the same quality of life as someone who may be considered as an adult.
Thank you. We got one right here in the back.
So children are the next generation of society, and so arguably they are the upbringing of a child is one of the most fundamental aspects of any successful society. So to ignore children would be to ignore the future.
Yes, yes, yes. You all gave some amazing answers, and you all are all right. Children have their own set of rights because they are humans with unique needs. They have vulnerabilities and developmental requirements. Recognizing and protecting children's rights are crucial for their well-being, development, and dignity. Child rights are the basic entitlements and protections that every child should have. We are going to talk more about this on our next slide, but the internationally recognized Convention on the Rights of a Child sheds light on the fact that children's rights are global minimum standards that ensure the protection, survival, and development of all persons below the age of 18 without discrimination. So thank you all for sharing. All right, so the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child is the important agreement by countries who have promised to protect children's rights. The CRC explains who children are, all of their rights, and the responsibilities of governments. All of the rights are connected. They are all equally important, and they cannot be taken away from children. Adopted in 1989, the UNCRC is an international human rights treaty that specifically outlines the rights of children from birth to age 18. The convention reflects a revolutionary new vision of a child. Children are neither the property of their parents, nor are they helpless objects of charity. They are human beings with rights and responsibilities appropriate to their age and stage of development. They are also social actors capable of making a positive difference in their lives, communities, and in the world. Child rights are legally enshrined in the CRC, articulated through a list of 54 agreements, or what we call articles. The first 42 detail specific rights, and the remainder details how adults and government should work together to make sure these rights are upheld. The CRC has been ratified by almost all countries, indicating a global consensus on the importance of children's rights as a fundamental aspect of human rights. The treaty recognizes the essential role and importance of parents and families and obligates governments to respect parents' primary responsibility for providing care and guidance for their children. So for this next part, we're going to go into a small activity. For this, we are going to, in your immediate areas, form groups of 4, 3? Yeah, groups of 3 to 4 with the people in your immediate area. In this group, the GAs will go around and give you a deck of cards. Take 2 minutes to reflect on the articles, and once you've read through them, pick the one that is most important to you. When I say time, that means I am about to give the next set of instructions, and Michelle will come around with these materials. So once you have them, please go ahead and get started. So go. You can. Oh, no. I should have had both. So just again for the activity, GAs are going around with a deck of cards. In your group, just go ahead individually go through the cards and pick one to you that resonates, and then we'll come back and I'll give you the next set of instructions. Yeah.
So for number 4, it says making rights real. Governments must do all that they can to make sure that every child in their country can enjoy all the rights and essential. Number 5 is family guidance as children develop. Government should let families and communities guide their children so that as they grow up, they learn to use their rights in the best way. The more children grow, the less guidance they will need. Life, survival, and development. Every child has their limits or stakes.
So if you have already picked a article that personally resonates with you, it seems like you all have already gone into a deep discussion, and I love it. So then for the next 5 minutes, the article that you personally chose, discuss that article with your group and let them know why you chose the article that you chose. All right, so it seems like you all are wrapping up on the second half of the group activity of explaining which article you chose and why you chose it. For the last half of this activity, I would like for you as a group to discuss the interconnectedness of the articles that you chose. And go ahead, by the end of this, choose 1 to 2 people that can read back to the group, which articles that you all chose and what the connectedness was between them. So I'll give you all about 3 more minutes to complete that. All right, wonderful. Okay, so now that you all have chosen a right that personally resonates with you, you've shared out to your group which right you chose and why you chose it. And the last stage was you all as a group discussed the interconnectedness of the rights that you all chose. So with anybody, we have 5 groups, so anybody from one of each group like to share the connectedness that they found between the articles that they chose. We have Ashley over here. Wonderful.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. In my group, we decided to choose 4, which is making rights real. Number 5, which is family guidance as children developed. 6, life, survival, and development. And 9, keeping families together. So let's start with 5. So 5 says family guidance as children develop. It is essential to keep a child and their parents together in terms of in the border, there are children and parents who get separated. But when a child is developing, they need that resource and that support to fall on in order to develop. And not having that parent as a resource and as a guiding tool to help them in life, it can really dramatically impact their development. But that's also connected with number 6, because number 6 talks about life, survival, and development, and how every child has the right to be alive and to survive. But I think the real thing should be every child has the right to be alive and thrive. And the best possible way a child could thrive is by resources and also having that parent to guide them. And that's when number 9 comes in, because number 9 talks about resources. I'm not number 9. Oh my gosh, wrong one. That's when... Okay. Yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so that's when number 5 comes in. Okay, the other one was number 9. Number 5 says the government should let families guide their child so that they can grow up and make sure that the child has the rights in every possible ways, and it also talks about resources. I feel that it's very essential to provide the child the resources, but also allow the parents to tap into those resources as well, so the parents can be able to utilize those tools to help their child. So that's how number 5, 6, and 9 are connected. But then number 4 comes in, and number 4 is the overseer. Number 4 ensures that these rights are being implemented, because number 4 talks about the rights. The government's job is to ensure that the rights are being dealt with and implemented. I think there's a big difference of writing something into law and not actually going forth and doing what was written, because then it's just all talk and it's all on paper, but nothing's really being done. So it's very essential that the government steps in and ensures that those actions are being taken and they're done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ashley, feel free to come get some off the table. Oh, I get some free. Okay, another group. We have an individual that would like to shake hands. Go ahead.
Hello. So my group, we collectively decided that number 6 and number 19, number 6 being life survival and development, and 19 being protection from violence. For the most part, I think that we agreed that number 6, life survival and development, is pretty much, it covers everything because, well, you know, children need to live and they need to survive, and I think their development is one of the most like vital aspects of like a children's upbringing, and which connects with number 19, protection from violence, because well, I feel like in this world, something about like how slavery is like more prominent in the modern world than it has ever been before. So I feel like that's why we need protection from violence from children, like to begin with. Like, I just feel like the world has been getting more violent lately, and the children, they need protection the most. So yeah.
Well, my name is Emily, and my group, it was kind of unanimous out of amongst all the cards. We picked health, water, food, and environment. And the reason we picked this is because we felt that this was the most basic element. And while it's the most simple and basic, it's surprising to hear how 90% of the world, when you leave America, or even in America, you see how people don't have this. And it's such a basic... It's such a basic thing, but you see how it obstructs a society from progressing. And so when we saw this card, or when I saw it, it reminded me of the last week's TTR, where we saw how something as basic as water stops somebody from, or can stop a society from progressing, from being even able to have an education. And so yeah, we felt that these elements were also connected to the food, clothing, and a safe home, because it kind of connects to what Ashley said, this of the concept of a safe home. And you'd be surprised how many kids don't have this safe environment, and it's something quite sad. I'm trying to see what else. We made a lot of connections out of all of them. It was almost like a game. But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to say it. Because she had a lot of good things, and I feel like...
No, I mean, we made a lot of connections throughout the entire cards, and I think that's the point. I think they wanted everything to interconnect. That way, whenever they make one law, they're not just doing one goal, but doing a lot of different goals. So the one with like the most cards, I think, would be how everyone must know the children's rights, and how we treat these children's rights and the laws and the conventions that it has. What I found interesting when I saw this card, 41, best law for children applies, we didn't really understand it. But after seeing how the convention works and how it has to do with like the laws and how we can give these children the best law depending on the country. So yeah.
Hi, I wanted to add to what she said, that slavery nowadays is a lot more prominent in the modern society. And I don't know compared to before if it's more prominent, but I do know that children are being attacked right now, especially with sex trafficking. And I think the best way to combat that is with information and education, and to inform the families that they have to be aware of their children at all times, especially when they go to the supermarket, not turning their backs to their kids, and basically always be aware of that, of where your child is at all times.
Hi. So our group chose 4 cards with 2 major focuses. We all agreed that the baseline for every child and for every human, is to have access to health, water, food, and a safe environment, right? And that should go for children as well. That's the baseline. That's the minimum. And, what follows up with that is social and economic help, because even in societies such as ours in the U.S., that's not readily available. Our second major topic is in regard to education. Number 28 is access to education, and what would we be if we don't learn? Every society leading up to modern societies have always focused on education. And number 29 goes hand in hand with that, which is the aims of education. And every child has a right to learn and develop their personalities in school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jalen, and my group chose 4 cards with it kind of jumping off like what you said, they all kind of tie into one another. So we chose number 33, protection from harmful drugs, number 34, protection from sexual abuse, number 35, prevention of sale and trafficking, and number 36, protection from exploitation. So all of these kind of fall into the same category. So my main focus is protection from harmful drugs. So harmful drugs kind of all plays a role in these categories. So, sorry, collecting my thoughts.
It's okay.
So children nowadays are getting a lot more involved in drug use with recreational marijuana. There's the fentanyl crisis, cocaine. There's just a lot of things going on that people tend to neglect, because when we talk about harmful drug use, they tend to think about people past the age of 18, when in reality, it's teens that see it in the music, in the media, in shows, and people do not realize that drug use is not only it's not one community, because it expands, because drug use can lead to young women who are involved in drug use and in selling drugs to being pimped. They could be pimped, and that leads to prostitution, which leads to, once again, like I said, sale and trafficking or exploitation. And these are young women who don't know any better. And as we were talking about discussing, it really has a lot to do with the parents and what they are allowing their children to be exposed to with certain media, with social media use. And as we mentioned, that it's right in front of you and you don't really see it, because you listen to lyrics of songs talking about this overwhelming drug use and like, smoke weed or whatever. And it's like, you think that that's just a silly lyric, but to some people that's their lifestyle. And that, like, a child's brain is a sponge. It's like they absorb everything. So they grow up believing that using these drugs are okay, but they don't understand that it really can just lead to such a terrible lifestyle because of just something so simple as a lyric. And it's like, and then she's gonna talk about sexual abuse.
So my name is Ruth. I chose protection from sexual abuse, and it's been a huge issue, like not just with children, but especially with children in war zones. There was several cases where UN peacekeepers, who are supposed to protect civilians, were accused of sexually abusing children, especially in Congo, Central African Republic, and also it's been a huge, widespread issue. And I think everybody in this room can agree that abusing a child this way is an outright sin. And it does so much damage to a child, especially at such a young age. And we know the facts, we know the effects of it, and it's something that I have been involved in, with another movement, to talk about the issues of sexual abuse and raising more awareness about it. And this does go hand in hand with number 35, prevention of sale and trafficking, and 36, protection from exploitation.
One more thing. So something that I actually forgot to mention is that United States is one of the largest it's one of the countries with the largest usage of illicit drugs and illicit substances. And though we aren't the ones that are making these drugs, like other countries that make these drugs, we are one of the countries with the most users. So it starts this conversation of, it can't only just be people who are over 18 using all these drugs. It's also children, because drug dealers, like very high in rank, don't tend to just use their little squad, like their little, like people that they know, friends. They use communities, they use neighborhoods, they use children, and they pay them with money, or, they bribe them. And it's like these children grow up around these communities thinking that drug use is okay, or they use them as like kind of a middleman, like, oh, hey, can you give this? And can you give this to this person? And it's like they're like the messenger, and it's like using these children so wrong, like wrongfully. It's like, wow. And it's like people don't recognize that drugs is just a whole umbrella of just problems, and it just really can affect everything.
Thank you. We got time for maybe one more.
I was going to say we have lots of comments at one. Sorry.
And hopefully we'll have time in the end if you have any other questions or comments.
You're real sure, I promise.
No
I just want
worries.
to toggle on what you said about kids being like more prone to violence. I feel like the access to video games nowadays and the violent video games, like I feel like it's just crazy. No kid should be shooting other people, even if it's a war game. Like, it's still insane. I personally don't think kids should be playing those games. I mean, I don't think anybody should be playing those games, period. I feel like it just clouds your judgment. Like, it makes you more, what's the word? Like, when you do see someone shot, I feel like you're not going to be as susceptible. Yeah, desensitized. And you kind of forget that's a human, even though it's a game and stuff. I feel like no one should be playing those games. So I feel like sometimes when parents get those kids games, like, oh, mom, I really want this game, deep down the parent knows maybe you shouldn't play, but like, yeah, fine, whatever. And they get the game, and kids get more violent and they fight. And it's been proven that kids with playing video games like that, they are more violent. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully if you have any comments, hopefully we can finish at the end, okay? So thank you all for participating and really engaging in some rich discussion around the CRC and what these rights mean to you and how you feel they're interconnected. So as you can recall, previously in our workshop, we discussed them being indivisible and interconnected. Keeping in mind, considering these human rights principles, we can't cherry pick rights, right? So there is no one right that is greater than the other. So moreover, when you look at them in isolation when considering the well-being of children, they are all interconnected and interdependent. So thank you all for that activity. As we move through this workshop, we want you to have a child rights approach to all application and action steps you work through, both today and beyond, as lifelong children advocates. There are a few key principles of child rights. 1, non-discrimination. All children have the same rights regardless of their race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or other characteristics. Best interests of the child include actions and decisions that should prioritize the well-being and the development of the child. They have the right to life, survival, and development. So every child has a right to a safe and healthy environment that supports their growth. And we should allow children to participate, right? They have the right to express their opinions and be involved in matters affecting their lives. As we move into the application and action portion of this workshop, I want you to consider these few questions. Based on what you've just learned, take a moment to think of the world that we live in, your state, your city, your school. Are these rights applied and protected in the real world or only in theory? And some of you kind of discuss your thoughts on that a little bit there. And which do you see which of these rights do you see most supported? And which do you see maybe have a little lack behind them? So, quick question. The CRC is ratified by 189 countries. There is one country that has not ratified the CRC. Could anyone guess what that country may be? I see your hand first.
I have 2 guesses. My first guess would be the United States, and the second guess would be North Korea.
The United States is right, yeah. So the United States has not ratified the CRC. That does not mean that we do not make laws for the best survival of our children, but we have not taken into account the whole Convention of the Rights of a Child. So that does not mean that we are not working towards that as a goal, but we're starting here on the grassroots level, raising awareness, providing application skills, and empowering you all to take action in your local community. So what does being an advocate mean? I mean, it means being you, right? UNICEF youth clubs are on the front line of youth-led change to realize the rights of the world's most vulnerable children. Our goal regarding our youth club is to plan and implement at least one event in each of the following categories. One is to advocate. Become an active citizen by encouraging your elected leaders to put children first in all funding and policy decisions. Help us ensure that kids can grow, play, and learn in healthy, safe environments. We take action to protect the U.S. government's annual funding to UNICEF to promote the survival, protection, and development of children in more than 190 countries. We also fundraise. We help save more children's lives than any other humanitarian organization. We operate solely on voluntary donations, so you can help us fundraise in support of children's survival, access to safe water, nutrition, health care, and protection from violence, exploitation, and abuse. We also take a little step in educating others about the challenges children face around the world, from struggling every day to survive, going to school, escaping conflict and disaster. You can lead a presentation to hold a local event to raise awareness, share your personal impact story, speak to leaders in your community, and convey the urgency of fighting for every child. And last but not least, build a community. Building partnerships with local organizations will help the community to ensure that every child is safe, healthy, and has access to quality education. You can coordinate your efforts with other college clubs. There is one here at Florida International University to promote the well-being of children in your local community. So one way that you can start by taking action today is by making this pledge. So all together, let's read this pledge. We pledge directly to lift our voices and our ideas to advocate for the protection of child rights in pursuit of one goal, to ensure every child can grow up healthy, protected, and respected. In 1989, the world leaders made a historic commitment to the world's children by adopting the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, which is the international agreement that we discussed. It's become the most widely ratified treaty in human rights and helps transform children's lives around the world. But still, not every child gets to enjoy a full childhood. There are still too many childhoods that are cut short. And it is up to our generation to demand that our leaders and governments and businesses and communities fulfill their commitments and take action for child rights now and once and for all. They must commit to making sure every child has every right. All right, wonderful. So, we have a post test. So if you all can scan that QR code once again, it is going to take you to the post test. And let's test what you all have been able to learn throughout this workshop today. Just to make sure everybody sees that first question, right? Okay, so let's move along. You know we can't see names, no worries. It's anonymous. We have a beautiful word cloud going here. Thank you all for your input. And I really appreciate you all taking the post survey just to see how far you've come since the beginning of the workshop. And it provides feedback to us at UNICEF USA to help understand the experience that you all have had and so that we can better serve our audience and future workshops. All right.
Oh, forgot all about that.
Okay, so before closing remarks, let's see if we can get everybody in a group shot. Before you all came in, you all were giving a photo release waiver. And that's just so that when we take this group picture, if you all would like for us to post it, we have your permission. So before I give closing remarks, if we could all come to the front and let's form a nice little circle here. Feel free to leave your waiver right here on the podium for me, and I can have Michelle take a picture for us. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
So the release is only if you'd like to be in the picture. Go ahead. Make your way to the front of the room. Yeah, up to the front. Up to the front. Go ahead. We'll tag them on social media by all means. I know. Come on. Okay, good. Sure. I'll be in too. Perfect. Did you want to be in the photo?
Get us a picture behind.
Only if you want to be in the photo. If you are choosing not to, that is totally fine. It is your prerogative.
Can you take it?
Yeah, that's perfect. That one.
Okay.
There. Do you want to layer up? Let's layer up. I will gladly squat. Zero problem.
Anyone want to be our nice UNICEF and hold our flyer?
Right here in the middle. Yay!
Wonderful.
Layer up. Layer up.
All right.
Oh, there we go. Good.
All right, on three, everybody. Let's say UNICEF. 1, 2, 3. UNICEF.
When I was born, my parent was the planet. They welcomed me, held me in their arms, caught me when I stumbled. Not always, but enough. Because I felt safe, I could rest, play, explore. Because I belonged, I learned how to be with myself and with others. Because I felt understood, I learned how to make sense of my mind. Life could be painful, slippery, sharp. But even so, love helped me grow like a tree, strong, yet flexible enough to bend in the wind. We evolved, like trees, to live together, to offer safety and support, to love. It can be hard to put love first when you're struggling to survive, but all it takes is one person, and there is the seed of love. There is trust. There is hope. Love is not a luxury. Love is essential. Love is urgent. Every child deserves to be loved.
Okay, perfect. Teaching child rights is an ongoing process that requires continuous engagement and action. By equipping children with knowledge about their rights and empowering them to advocate for themselves and others, we contribute to a more just and inclusive society. Thank you all so much for having me today. Remember to create a safe and inclusive environment. Thank you.
One more time for Ebony. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for leading today's session.
If you all have these cards, can we just make sure I get those back?
Yeah, you can leave them right where you are if you want, or you can just leave them off to the side. We'll pick them up when we're done. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session of TTR. Feel free to join us again next week. We'll have a short panel, a small panel from the Peace Corps and from the Refugee Assistance Alliance. They're coming to talk about the significance of community integration and cultural understanding. And if that makes sense, right, Peace Corps and the Refugee Assistance Alliance, we've got two opposite sides of thinking about the way of integrating into a culture or into a society. So it's going to be a really great one. We hope you join us again next week. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.